Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and dear students, welcome back to lecture number 15 of macroeconomics. जैसा कि आपको मालूम है, पहले की तरह चंद मिनट के लिए हम पिछले लेक्चर पे बात करेंगे. We'll try to revise the previous lecture and then we'll start today's class. So what we have learned in yesterday class, we talked about the economic fluctuations. Started to discuss economic fluctuations. In every economy there fluctuations are there. Sometime real growth of growth rate of real GDP is going up, coming down. So and that's because of many reasons in the economy. We have then talked about the two time periods. We talked about long run and short run. In long run, prices are flexible. Output and employment are always at their natural rates, and the classical theory applies there. So as far as long run is concerned, in long run prices are flexible and output and employment will remain at full employment level or at its natural rate, and this is according to the classical theory of economics. Then we have talked about short run. Short run is the time period where prices are sticky. These are determined at predetermined level. Then shocks can push output and employment away from their natural rates. So in case of short run, when are there shocks or fluctuations, economic fluctuations in the economy, those shocks can push output and employment away from their natural rates, right? So that is the main difference between short run and long run. In long run prices are pretty flexible, and in short run prices are stuck or at predetermined level. After that we have talked about aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Now aggregate demand and aggregate supply is a framework which we use to analyze economic fluctuations in the economy, right? So that framework is used to analyze the economic fluctuation in a country or in economy. सबसे पहले हमने aggregate demand की बात की, and we have seen that aggregate demand curve is downward sloping curve. It means that there is inverse relationship between the price level and the output level in the economy. After that, we have discussed about the aggregate supply. Aggregate supply basically, in that case, we have since we have two time periods, so we have two long run aggregate supply curve and short run aggregate supply curve, right? So since output is determined by the supplies of capital and labor and level of technology, and all these factors of production are given in are assumed constant or exogenous in the long run. So we have vertical slope long run aggregate supply curve. In the short run, since prices are fixed, prices are sticky, are at predetermined level, whatever is the level of output produced and sold in the economy, prices will remain same. Prices are stuck. Prices are at predetermined level, so we have horizontal slope short-run aggregate supply curve. So after that, when we have separately discussed the aggregate demand curve and aggregate supply curve, we have combined these two curves and then we have tried to see how economic fluctuations can disturb the economy in the short run, and in the long run how it comes back to its natural rate, right? So we have combined both aggregate demand and aggregate supply in one diagram and see if there is economic fluctuation in the short run, what will happen to the economy in the short run, and in the long run economy comes back to its natural rate. So this was what we have learned, then shocks to aggregate demand and supply cause fluctuations in GDP and employment in the short run. But the federal government or the Fed can attempt to stabilize the economy with monetary policy. They can use money supply and then stabilize the economies, brings the economy to its natural rate of unemployment, natural rate of employment and natural rate of output. Aggregate demand, aggregate supply is the framework which analyzes economic fluctuations, and the government or the Fed can use monetary policy to stabilize the economy, right, by increasing or decreasing the money supply as and when it is required to stabilize the economy. So this was all about what we have learned in the previous class. We'll start today's class. Now we want to focus on aggregate demand again. If you remember in the previous class हमने देखा कि how monetary policy can affect the aggregate demand, aggregate supply in the economy and brings equilibrium in the market and in the economy. Now we would like to focus that there are some factors which can also affect the aggregate demand, not only monetary policy. We are going to learn the Keynesian cross, which is quite opposite to the classical economics, classical theory of economics. Classical economists, जैसे कि हमने last time देखा, classical economists ये कहते हैं कि prices are flexible in the long run and economy comes back to its natural rate of employment and full level of output. But Keynes said this theory is practically not valid. They criticized classical economists and they developed their own theory. Now we'll discuss Keynesian cross in today's class, and number two, with the help of Keynesian cross, we would like to develop IS curve, investment saving curve, and the next lecture will drive LM, liquidity money curve, LM curve, and then we'll combine these two and see how the economy behaves, how the government can use fiscal policy instead of monetary policy to stabilize the economy. तो आज के लेक्चर में हम बात करेंगे Keynesian cross पे, और with the help of Keynesian cross we'll try to develop or drive the IS curve, which is the investment saving curve. We'll start from the Keynesian cross. Keynesian cross क्या है? It is why we call it Keynesian cross, because the cross, we'll see later on, the two curves are crossing each other, so that's why we call it Keynesian cross. And Keynesian is because the Keynesian is a group of economists who have given this cross. So here we assume that it is a simple closed economy model in which income is determined by expenditure. It is a closed economy, there is no foreign trade, there is no international trade, and in which income is determined by the expenditure level in the country or in the economy. So the notations that we are going to use in this lecture, in this chapter, are I is used for planned investment, E is used for expenditure or the planned expenditure, and as we know that planned expenditure is equal to consumption plus investment plus government spending. So planned expenditure is those expenditure which are planned by the individual, planned by the government, planned by the individual investors, right? So that's why we call it a planned expenditure. And then as we know that we have learned in chapter 3 and 4, we have seen that Y, which is real GDP, and it is always equal to expenditure. So that was the identity which we have developed in chapter 3, and we have seen that output level is equal to the expenditure level in the country or in the economy. Now, and the difference between actual and planned expenditure is the unplanned inventory investment, right? So the दोनों में जो फर्क होगा, जो डिफरेंस होता है, मतलब जैसे कि हमने कहा कि एक हमारा प्लान एक्सपेंडिचर है जो कि हम प्लान करते हैं कि ये चीज़ें, इन चीज़ों पे हम खर्च करेंगे, यहाँ इन्वेस्टमेंट करेंगे, गवर्नमेंट के प्लान करते हैं कि ये अखराजात होंगे, बट at the same time when there are planned expenditure there are actual expenditure. तो दोनों का जो डिफरेंस है एक्चुअल और प्लान एक्सपेंडिचर का, so that is basically the unplanned unplanned inventory investment. Sometimes this unplanned inventory investment goes up, sometimes it goes down, and then it accordingly affect the economy, affect the level of output in the economy. Elements which we are going to use in this Keynesian cross are consumption function, as we know that consumption is a function of income, and here particularly consumption is a function of disposable income. Now C is a function of Y minus T. Y is the level of income minus taxes, personal income minus taxes, so then it will become disposable income. Now government policy variable that we are going to use, which is the fiscal policy variable, G is equal to G bar. It means government expenditure are exogenous, are given in this Keynesian economics or Keynesian cross, and T, which is the level of taxes, it is also given, and that is why we equate T is equal to T bar. For now investment is also exogenous, it is given I is equal to I bar. So by using these all of these variables, that is C, G and I, we can rewrite the equation of planned expenditure. E is equal to C into Y minus T bar plus I bar plus G bar. Now if we see here that since T bar is constant, I bar is constant, G bar is constant, so what is going to happen in the equilibrium? Now in equilibrium, when in the economy, when it is equilibrium, income Y is equal to expenditure. At the equilibrium level, Y is equal to E, right? So this is the equilibrium level of the economy as far as Keynesian cross is concerned. So any deviation, whenever Y is greater than E or Y is less than E, of course then this will create unplanned inventory investment, and we'll see in the diagram, in the coming diagram. Now we'll graph the planned expenditure curve. On y-axis we are measuring planned expenditure, on x-axis we are measuring income or output level in the economy. You see, you can see the planned expenditure curve, which is it's positively sloped. What it shows that with the increase in income, with the increase in output, planned expenditure, which is in the form of consumption, investment, government expenditure will also increase. वो भी उनमें भी इजाफा हो जाता है. That's why we have this positively sloped curve, and you can see the slope of this planned expenditure curve is the marginal propensity to consume, the change in consumption due to change in income. So how we define MPC? MPC is the marginal propensity to consume as the slope of this curve, and that is equal to change in consumption due to change in, whenever there is a change in consumption, income, there is a change in consumption, and that is known as the marginal propensity to consume, and that is the slope of this curve. So we have this planned expenditure curve. Then we have an income line, which is, as we know that income is also equal to the expenditure of the economy at equilibrium. So E is equal to Y. Again on y-axis we are measuring the expenditure, planned expenditure. On x-axis we are measuring the income, and we have an income line which is 45-degree line, which shows that there is a positive relationship between these two, expenditure and income in the economy. Now we'll combine these two graphs and try to determine the equilibrium in the economy, and we'll come up with the Keynesian cross. The equilibrium value of income is determined, as I told you, that in economy is an equilibrium, our income level is an equilibrium, and expenditure where both I, E is equal to Y, where these two curves intersect each other, and this is what we call the Keynesian cross. Now if you see that Y is the income line, E is the planned expenditure line, and both of these two curves are intersecting at some point. And suppose if we call this point this is point A. Now if you look at point A, what is happening at point A? Income is equal to expenditure, E is equal to Y. So this is the equilibrium level of income in the economy and equilibrium level of expenditure in the economy. And this curve, this situation is known as the Keynesian cross. Now suppose what will happen to this equilibrium if there is increase in government purchases or government spendings? So what will happen? Now since E is the component of planned expenditure, planned expenditures are equal to E is equal to C plus I plus G. Now whenever G will go up, whenever there is increase in G from G1 to G2, what will happen? The overall planned expenditures, which is E, will also go up, which is C plus I plus G1 to C plus I plus G2. So what will happen to the curve, expenditure curve? This will shift upward. And now the economy is at equilibrium, is a new point equilibrium, and where this new line is intersecting. And suppose we call this point B. At point B, what is happening? If you look at point B, income level has gone up from Y1 to Y2, and of course at this E2 is equal to Y2. E1 was the first expenditure, planned expenditure, where we have G1 level of government spending. Now we have said that if there is increase in government spending from G1 to G2, so what will happen to the planned expenditure of the economy? That will also go up and the curve will shift upward, and the new equilibrium is at this. Now but if you see that the change in income is more than the change in government spending. A change in change in expenditure, the change in income is more than the change in expenditure, because at Y1 there is now an unplanned drop in inventory investment. What will happen in Y1? At Y1 now there is unplanned drop in inventory investment. So the firms increase output and income rises towards a new equilibrium. Why there is a drop in unplanned investment? Because गवर्नमेंट स्पेंडिंग हैज़ इंक्रीज. जब गवर्नमेंट स्पेंडिंग बढ़ जाती है, जो अनप्लान इन्वेंट्री इन्वेस्टमेंट में इजाफा होना था वो कमी वाक़ई हो जाएगी, बिकॉज खर्चा ज़्यादा हो गया, अखराजात ज़्यादा हो गए, दे हैव टू स्पेंड मोर, सो देयर विल बी ए ड्रॉप इन अनप्लान इन्वेंट्री इन्वेस्टमेंट. जब अनप्लान इन्वेस्ट्री में कम हुई वाक़ई होगी तो नेचुरली क्या होगा, फर्म्स विल प्रोड्यूस मोर, फर्म्स की आउटपुट में इजाफा होना शुरू हो जाएगा. जब फर्म्स की आउटपुट में इजाफा होता है तो व्हाट विल हैपन, इनकम बढ़ना शुरू हो जाएगी एंड द इकोनॉमी विल मूव टू ए न्यू इक्विलिब्रियम लेवल एट इट पॉइंट 2. एंड सपोज इफ गवर्नमेंट स्पेंडिंग गोज डाउन, व्हाट विल हैपन, जब स्पेंडिंग में कमी वाक़ई होगी तो नेचुरली स्पेंडिंग में कमी वाक़ई होगी तो ओवरऑल गवर्नमेंट स्पेंडिंग में कमी वाक़ई होगी तो ओवरऑल जो ई है दैट विल बी नो सी प्लस आई प्लस G3. दिस विल बी E3. Now E3 will be equal to C plus I plus G3, and now since government spending or government purchases has gone down, so the curve will shift downward like this. Now this curve is equal to E is equal to C plus I G3. Now if we compare Y1 and Y3, now this is Y3. Now what is happening in Y3? There is increase in unplanned, because गवर्नमेंट स्पेंडिंग में कमी वाक़ई हो गई. जब गवर्नमेंट स्पेंडिंग में कमी वाक़ई होगी तो अनप्लान इन्वेंट्री जो इन्वेस्टमेंट है वो बढ़ जाएगी. जब वो बढ़ेगी अनप्लान्ड इन्वेंट्री में इजाफा होगा तो क्या होगा, ओवरऑल जो फर्म्स है उनकी आउटपुट में कमी वाक़ होना शुरू हो जाएगी। जब आउटपुट में कमी वाक़ होगी तो व्हाट विल हैपन, इनकम में भी कमी वाक़, क्योंकि इनकम कम्स डाउन फ्रॉम Y1 टू Y3। सो economy is at equilibrium where both economy will be an equilibrium where E is equal to Y. So this is the equilibrium condition in the economy, then where planned expenditure or the expenditure of the economy is equal to the income level of the economy. Now whenever there is a change or shift in the expenditure curve, there will be a change in inventory, planned inventory. It can goes up or it can goes down. If suppose government expenditure goes up, तो अनप्लान इन्वेंट्री में ड्रॉप होना शुरू हो जाएगी और इनकम बढ़ेगी, इनकम बढ़ने से आउटपुट बढ़ेगी और हम इक्विलिब्रियम पे आ जाएंगे, नए इक्विलिब्रियम पे। इसी तरह जब अखराजात में कमी वाक़या होती है, अखराजात में कमी वाक़या होती है, अनप्लान इन्वेंट्री बिल्ड अप होना शुरू हो जाती है। जब अनप्लान इन्वेंट्री बिल्ड अप होती है तो व्हाट विल हैपन, द फर्म विल रिड्यूस इनकम, reduce output, and therefore it will reduce income in level in the economy, and the economy will come to a new equilibrium which is below than the initial level of equilibrium. So this is how the change in government spending, change in investment, change in consumption can affect the level of equilibrium in the economy. You can change either consumption, investment or government spending, and that can affect the level of income and expenditure in the economy. Now since we have seen here, we are just discussing one case, that whenever there is a change in government expenditure, whether upward or downward, there will be a change in the consumer equilibrium and the level of income and expenditure in the economy. Now we can solve this equation for delta y, the change in y, how much is the change in income ड्यू टू चेंज इन एक्सपेंडिचर। जैसा कि हमने देखा ग्राफिकली, हमने ये देखा कि व्हेन एवर देयर इज अ चेंज इन गवर्नमेंट स्पेंडिंग और गवर्नमेंट परचेजेस, तो दिस अफेक्ट द चेंज इन income, right? So delta change is here denoted by delta. So whenever there is a change in expenditure, that is change in G, this will bring a change in income level in the economy. तो expenditure की वजह से जो economy में तब्दीली आती है, that is income level में, उसको delta y से हम denote करते हैं, and we'll try to find out how much change is in delta y due to 1% change in एक्सपेंडिचर। अगर एक्सपेंडिचर और गवर्नमेंट परचेज में 1% चेंज आती है तो इनकम में कितनी परसेंट चेंज आती है, एंड दैट इज नोन एज द मल्टीप्लायर इफेक्ट, राइट? अगर ज्यादा 1% से ज्यादा चेंज आएगी तो उसको हम कहेंगे कि दिस इज ए मल्टीप्लायर इफेक्ट ऑफ expenditure on income. Now we'll see that, as we know that our income equation in chapter 3 that we have learned is y is equal to c plus I plus g when the economy is closed, and this is the equilibrium condition of the economy. Now if we apply changes on both sides, delta y will be equal to delta c plus delta I plus delta g. Now because as we know that we assume that I is exogenous, so the change in I is 0. When it is exogenous, it is given, it is 0. So we are left with this delta y is equal to c, delta c and delta g. Now since as we know that delta c basically is equal to mpc over into delta y, if we multiply this term delta c, if we multiply delta c with delta y and divide by delta y, so this will be equal, it can also be written as delta c over delta y into delta y. Now this delta c is mpc into delta y. So we can replace this term delta c with mpc, it is the marginal propensity to consume, into delta y. So then we can write this equation, this is delta y is equal to mpc into delta y plus delta G. Now if we rearrange or collect the terms with delta Y on one side, on the left side of the equation, यानी कि क्या होगा, minus so if we collect the terms of delta Y on one side, now if we further simplify this, this will become delta Y is equal to delta, or now this is 1 minus MPC in delta Y or delta C, or if we further simplify this, delta Y is equal to delta G, or delta Y over delta G is equal to 1 over M1 minus MPC. So we started with Y is equal to C plus I plus G. जब इसमें चेंज ले आएंगे, दोनों साइड पे चेंज अप्लाई करें, डेल्टा Y इज इक्वल डेल्टा C प्लस डेल्टा I प्लस डेल्टा G. नाउ सिंस जैसा कि हमने शुरू में कहा, अजम्पशन हमारी थी कि I एक्सोजिनस है, गिवन है. जब I एक्सोजिनस है तो उसमें जब तब्दीली आएगी, उसका जो डेरिवेटिव होगा वो हमें पता है कि कांस्टेंट का डेरिवेटिव क्या होता है, 0 होता है, राइट. सो देन वी आर लेफ्ट विद डेल्टा Y इज इक्वल टू डेल्टा C प्लस डेल्टा G. नाउ इफ वी मल्टीप्लाई द फर्स्ट टर्म डेल्टा C विद डेल्टा Y और डिवाइड बाय डेल्टा Y, so we can come up with the this delta C will be equal to MPC into delta Y. Now if substitute this value of delta C here, so we'll get delta Y is equal to MPC into delta Y plus delta G. Now just rearrange and collect the term of delta Y on the left side of the equation. So we are left with delta Y minus 1 delta Y minus MPC into delta Y is equal to delta G. Now just take common इन दोनों जो लेफ्ट साइड पे जो दो टर्म्स हैं, इसमें से डेल्टा Y अगर कॉमन ले लेते हैं आप, तो डेल्टा Y बाहर ले लेते हैं, तो 1 माइनस MPC इज इक्वल डेल्टा G, और डेल्टा Y इज इक्वल टू डेल्टा G ओवर delta Y is equal to delta G over 1 minus MPC, or delta Y over delta G is equal to 1 over 1 minus MPC. Now this is the law. So if there is 1% change in expenditure, government purchases, income will be changed by 1 over 1 minus MPC factor. Now suppose MPC, marginal propensity to consume, is 0.8. If we substitute that value here, delta Y is equal to 1 over 1 minus MPC into delta G. 1 over 1 minus 0.8 is equal to delta G is equal to 1 over 0.2 delta G is equal to 5 delta G. So the increase in G causes income to increase by 5 times as much. So we have seen that whenever there is a change in expenditure, income will increase, or there will be change in income by 5%, right? Now this increase in G or G causes income to rise by 5%, and this is known as the government purchase multiplier. The increase in income resulting from $1 increase in G, right? So in this model, the G multiplier equals delta Y over delta G is equal to 1 over 1 minus MPC. And if we suppose that MPC is equal to 0.8, then government purchase multiplier, which is delta Y over delta G, is equal to 1 over 1 minus MPC, is equal to 5. So if government purchases goes up by $1, so income will go up by $5. So there is a multiplier effect. Income has increased 5 times more than the increase in government spending. That's why we call it government purchases multiplier effect. So this is a multiplier effect on income of government purchases. अगर government purchases में 1% इजाफा होता है तो income में कहीं उससे 5% ज़्यादा इजाफा होता है. That's why we call it multiplier. Means income multiplies 5 times with the change in government purchases. Why the multiplier is greater than 1? What is the reason? Initially, the increase in G causes an equal increase in Y. Delta Y is equal to delta G. But when there is increase in Y, what will happen? जब एक दफ़ा इनकम में इजाफा हो गया जी के बढ़ने से, गवर्नमेंट एक्सपेंडिचर के बढ़ने से, जब इनिशियली सपोज 1% इजाफा हुआ एक्सपेंडिचर में तो 1% इनकम बढ़ गई. जब इनकम बढ़ी तो केन्स का जो साइकोलॉजिकल लॉ ऑफ कंजम्पशन है, केन्स ये कहता है कि इनकम के बढ़ने से कंजम्पशन बढ़ जाएगी, सी में इजाफा होगा. जब सी में इजाफा होगा तो दिस विल फर्दर इंक्रीज इन इनकम, विच विल फर्दर इंक्रीज इन सी, then it will further increase in Y, and so the final impact on income is much bigger, is much larger than the initial change in G, right? So that is the reason कि जब शुरू में initially तो ये होता है कि जितना government purchases बढ़ती हैं उतनी ही income बढ़ती है, but with the rise in income, consumptions of the individual will go up. जब कंजम्पशन बढ़ती है तो फर्दर इनकम में इजाफा होता है, फिर कंजम्पशन बढ़ती है, फिर जब इनकम में इजाफा होता है फिर कंजम्पशन बढ़ती है. दिस प्रोसेस गोज एंड द फाइनल इम्पैक्ट ऑन इनकम is much bigger, is much larger than the initial change in government purchases, right? So that's why we call it a government purchase multiplier, or it is the multiplier effect, that income goes up more than the change in government purchases. Now the second multiplier is the tax multiplier, or whenever there is change in expenditure, change in income due to change in taxes, that is known as the tax multiplier. We'll see that how change in taxes affect the level of income and expenditure in the economy. On y-axis we are measuring, taking expenditures, planned expenditure. On x-axis we are taking income level. You see we have the income line, which is equal to E is equal to Y. We have the expenditure, E is equal to C, 1 plus I plus G. Economy is at equilibrium, where both these two curves are intersecting, and income level is at Y1. Now what will happen if the government increases its taxes? What will happen? जब taxes में इजाफा होता है, जो taxes directly affect consumptions, consumption को क्या होगी, consumption में कमी वाक़ई होगी. When consumptions will go down, what will happen to the expenditure overall? E will also go down, because E depends on consumption plus investment plus government purchases. तो जब एक component में कमी वाक़ई हुई due to increase in taxes, consumption में कमी वाक़ई हुई, तो overall जो planned expenditure हैं वो भी कम हो जाएंगे. So what will happen? The curve will shift downward. So the firm reduces output. When the curve will shift downward, what will happen? There is a drop. There is a build up in the inventory investment. जब build up होगा तो firm will reduce output, and income falls towards a new equilibrium, and that equilibrium is at point B, where this curve, new It is point B, where this new curve, expenditure curve, is intersecting the income line, and now the income is equal to Y2. Now income with the increase in taxes, consumption में कमी वाक़या हुई और उससे income level में कमी वाक़या हो गई. मैं रिपीट करता हूँ इस डायग्राम को. We have income line, we have expenditure line. Both are these two intersecting at this point. We have equilibrium in the economy and income is at Y1 level. Now suppose what is happening at Y1, there is no unplanned inventory build-up at Y1. Now suppose taxes goes up. जब टैक्सेस में इजाफा होगा तो कंजम्पशन में कमी वाक़या होगी. जब कंजम्पशन में कमी वाक़या होगी तो ओवरऑल प्लान एक्सपेंडिचर जो है ई में कमी वाक़या होगी एंड कर्व विल शिफ्ट डाउनवर्ड. नाउ व्हाट इज हैपनिंग व्हेन कर्व विल शिफ्ट डाउनवर्ड? सो देयर इज नाउ एन अनप्लान्ड inventory build up at Y1. When this happens, firms will reduce income, firms will reduce output, and income falls towards the new equilibrium from Y1 to Y2. Now this change in consumption due to change in taxes is known as the tax multiplier. Delta C is equal to minus MPC delta T, right? So change in consumption is why we have minus sign with MPC, because with the change in taxes income income में कमी वाक़या होती है और उससे consumption में कमी वाक़या होती है. So the change in consumption is is affected negatively by the increase in taxes. That's why we have this negative sign. Delta C is equal to minus MPC delta T. Now we can solve this again for delta Y. Delta Y is equal to delta C, delta I, delta G. This is the equilibrium condition. And we know that I and G are exogenous here. So delta Y is equal to delta C. Or if we substitute the value of C, as we know that C depends on disposable income, MPC into delta Y and minus delta T. Just multiply delta Y is equal to 1 minus MPC, just multiply this term inside. This is equal to MPC delta Y minus MPC delta T, right? Now if we collect the delta Y terms on one side, this way can be written as delta Y is minus MPC delta Y is equal to minus MPC delta T. Now if we just take common delta Y from this side, इस टर्म से delta Y common ले लें तो 1 minus MPC into delta Y is equal to minus MPC into delta T. Just simplify this equation, we get this. This is the final result. Delta Y is equal to minus MPC over 1 minus MPC into delta T, and this is known as the tax multiplier, the effect of taxes on income. So this is the numerical solution or numerical effect, how we can see the effect of taxes on income. मैं दोबारा repeat करता हूँ. We started with delta Y is equal to delta C plus delta I plus delta G. Now we can solve this equation for delta Y. Here we are assuming that I and G are exogenous. So उनका जो derivative है, जब exogenous होते हैं, constant होते हैं, constant का derivative क्या होता है? 0 होता है. तो delta Y is equal to delta C, and we know that C depends on disposable income. Delta C की जगह replace करेंगे delta Y minus delta T. And then if we multiply this MP on both sides, we get delta MPC delta Y minus MPC delta T. Now just collect the terms of delta Y with delta Y on left side. We are left with 1 minus MPC into delta Y is equal to minus MPC into delta T. Just find from this, just rearrange this equation. Delta y will be equal to minus MPC over 1 minus MPC into delta t. Now the tax multiplier is the change in income resulting from a $1 increase in taxes. So if there is a $1 change or increase in taxes, how much change in income will be there? That is known as the tax multiplier. And we can find that delta y is equal, delta y or delta t, change in income due to change in taxes, that is equal to minus MPC over 1 minus MPC, where MPC is the marginal propensity to consume. Right? Suppose if marginal propensity to consume is given to us, which is 0.8, then the tax multiplier will be equal to delta y over delta t is equal to minus 0.8 over 1 minus 0.8 is equal to minus 0.8 over 0.2 is equal to minus 4. So we have a negative sign with the tax multiplier. If there is $1 increase in taxes, there will be $4 decrease in income, right? The income will go down, and if you take the absolute value, so you can see that it 4 times decrease in income than the change in as due to change in taxes. Now the tax multiplier is negative. A tax hike reduces consumer spending, which reduces income. तो डायरेक्ट इम्पैक्ट जो है टैक्सेस का, जैसा कि हमें मालूम है, अगर टैक्सेस में कोई कंट्री इकानमी इजाफा कर देती है तो दैट हैज़ डायरेक्ट इफेक्ट ऑन कंजम्पशन. इट रिड्यूसेस कंज्यूमर स्पेंडिंग एंड विच रिड्यूसेस इनकम एंड विच इज़ ग्रेटर दैन 1 in absolute value. That's we have seen just now. पिछली स्लाइड में हमने देखा कि जब टैक्सेस में इजाफा होता है तो कंज्यूमर स्पेंडिंग में कमी वाक़ई होती है, जब कंज्यूमर स्पेंडिंग में कमी वाक़ई होती है तो इनकम में कमी वाक़ई होती है, एंड विच इज़ ग्रेटर दैन 1 in absolute value. A change in taxes has a multiplier effect. A change in taxes has a multiplier effect on income. Is smaller than the government spending multiplier. But if we compare these two, the effect of tax on income is comparatively smaller. Tax की वजह से जो income में कमी वाक़ई हुई है, that is more than the change in taxes, but that effect, that change in income is smaller as compared to the change in consumption, government spending or government purchases. Government purchases में जो effect हुआ था income पे वो ज़्यादा था as compared to the change in income due to change in taxes. This is what I mean to say here. Consumers save the fraction 1 minus MPC of a tax cut, so the initial boost up in spending from a tax cut is smaller than from an equal increase in G, and that is the reason why the change in income is comparatively more due to change in government spending than taxes. As we said that in the previous slide, the effect of tax on income is negative, and increase in taxes reduce consumer spending, which reduces expenditure level, reduces income, income in the economy, and this is greater than 1 in absolute values. A change in taxes has a multiplier effect on income, which is smaller than the government spending multiplier, and this is because of the reason because consumer have to save the fraction which is 1 minus MPC of a tax cut, so that initial boost in spending from tax cut is smaller than an equal increase in G. So that is the reason we can say that the change in income due to change in government purchases is larger, bigger than as compared to change in income due to change in taxes. Now there is a exercise for you. Please look in this slide, try to solve it, otherwise we can discuss it next time. And what is the exercise? What you are supposed to do is that use a graph of the Keynesian cross to show the impact of increase in investment on the equilibrium level of income and output. तो अभी तक जो हमने डिस्कस किया, मैंने जो आपको बताया, हमने जो सीखा, we have seen the effect of two variables on on income and expenditure in the economy. One, we have changed the government spending, we have increased the government spending, and we have seen that how it affects the level of income in the economy. Then we have changed the taxes, and through taxes we have seen the effect of consumption on income, how taxes through consumption can affect the level of income in the economy. So ये दो चीज़ें, as you know that expenditure is equal to C plus I plus G. So we have already seen the effect of C and G. There is a third variable in the equation which is investment. तो जो कि मैं आपको करने के लिए दे रहा हूँ, दो चीज़ें मैंने आपको करा दी हैं. हमने देख लिया कि एक्सपेंडिचर जब इनकम में गवर्नमेंट परचेज में तब्दीली आती है, how it affects the expenditure, how it affects the income in the economy. Whenever there is a change in consumption due to change in taxes, how it affects the planned expenditure, and then in turn how it affects the level of income in the economy. Now what I am going to give you an exercise, a practice question, and there is a third variable in the equation, C is equal to E plus I plus G. Now this third variable, now whenever there is a change in the third variable which is investment, right? So by using Keynesian cross, using that diagram, you have to tell us how much change in investment will bring how much change in income and output level in the economy. So this is the exercise which you are going to do at home. Now by using this Keynesian cross, we'll try to develop or draw the IS curve, which is one of the purpose of discussing this Keynesian cross. IS curve is the graph of all combinations of R and Y that results goods market in equilibrium, right? So that it consists of different combination of interest rate and income level in the economy that results, that gives equilibrium in the goods market, right? So that is the definition of IS curve. So we'll try to drive the IS curve with the help of Keynesian cross. And that is actual expenditure output is equal to planned expenditure. So Y is equal to E. The IS curve is, the equation of IS curve can be written as Y is equal to C depends on Y minus taxes plus investment depend on rate of interest plus G bar is given. Now we'll try to derive the IS curve from the Keynesian cross. We have two basically diagram in this slide. We have a Keynesian cross diagram and the IS curve. Now how we drive this curve, if you look at graph 1, graph A, on y-axis we are measuring expenditure, on x-axis we are measuring income. We have an income line, E is equal to Y, we have an expenditure, E is equal to C plus IR1 plus G. Now since जैसे कि if you go back the equation अगर आप देखें तो इसमें T bar constant है, G bar constant है, only जो in adjust कर सकता है equation को equilibrium को ला सकता है economy is the interest rate. Interest rate is the only variable that can affect level of income in the economy. तो यहाँ पे भी E, when we write E is equal to C plus IR1 mean the rate of interest is R1 plus G. Now the equilibrium level of income in the economy is Y1. Now अगर इसी Y1 के against नीचे अगर इसको आप ले आए line को, तो you get a point against R1 and Y1. You can call this point, we can call this point A, right? So this is, we got a point corresponding to that equilibrium where in Keynesian cross the economy is an equilibrium where these two curve, income line and expenditure curve are intersecting, and this is point, you can call this point, we can give a name to this point, some corresponding to point A in Keynesian cross. We have a point in the corresponding point in R and Y relationship, which is point A. Now suppose if rate of interest goes up from R1 to R2, what is happening? If R goes up, you can see that, sorry, if a rate of interest goes down, as we know that the relationship between interest rate and investment is negative, right? If R goes down, rate of interest goes down, investment will go up. जब investment में इजाफा होगा, तो what will happen? The planned expenditure, the expenditure E will go up, and the curve will shift upward. And now the economy is at new equilibrium at point B. Now if we take this point and where the income level is Y2, इसको अगर आप नीचे ले आए तो you have at a new interest rate at when R comes down from R1 to R2, income will go up from Y1 to Y2. So you have another point from the Keynesian cross. So corresponding to point B in Keynesian cross, we have a point B in the R and Y curve. So diagram. So if we combine these 2 points A and B, we get the IS curve, which is negatively sloped. It has the similar relationship as we have the relationship between investment and rate of interest. Rate of interest में जब कमी वाक़ होती है, investment में इजाफा वाक़ होता है. जब investment में इजाफा होता है तो income बढ़ती है naturally. So there is inverse relationship between the rate of interest and income level in the economy, and this curve is known as the investment saving curve or the IS curve, which brings equilibrium in the goods market. Now understanding of the IS curve slope, the IS curve slope is negatively sloped. What is the intuition, what is the logic? A fall in the interest rate motivates firms to increase investment. जब investment में कमी वाक़ होती है तो that motivates to invest more, to spend more on investment projects, and then which drives up the total planned expenditure, जिससे total planned expenditure जो है वो बढ़ जाते हैं. To restore the equilibrium in the goods market, output must increase, income must increase. जब planned expenditure में इजाफा हुआ तो output को भी बढ़ना चाहिए, income को भी बढ़ना चाहिए, right? So this is the logic. जब due to fall in the interest rate, जब interest rate में कमी वाक़ई हुई तो planned investment में इजाफा हुआ, investment में इजाफे के साथ जो planned expenditure है उसमें इजाफा हो गया, and then in order to restore the equilibrium in the goods market, अगर हम चाहते हैं कि goods market में equilibrium है तो जब expenditure में इजाफा हो तो correspondingly output में भी इजाफा होना चाहिए, must बढ़ना चाहिए, must increase, the level of output must increase, right? So that's why this phenomena, this reason, this situation explain the negative slope of negative slope IS curve. We can use the loanable funds model and can also drive the IS curve. In A, diagram A, we have the loanable funds model, and on B we have the IS curve. As we know that savings are given in the loanable funds market, so that's why we have vertical slope curve. On y-axis we are measuring interest rate, on x-axis we are measuring saving and investment, right? ये हम ऑलरेडी डिटेल में डिस्कस कर चुके हैं लोनेबल फंड्स मार्केट को, जहाँ पे हमारे पास 2 कर्व्स होते हैं. वन इज द इन्वेस्टमेंट कर्व, द अदर इज saving curve. Savings are given in the loanable funds market or the loanable funds model, so we have a vertical slope IS curve. Investment curve is downward sloping, so both of these 2 curves intersect each other at a point, let us say point A. Now at point A, R1 is the interest rate, Y1 this is the level of saving and investment. Corresponding to this investment, we have this point in here, point here. At R1 we have Y1 level of income. Now suppose there is a change or decrease in investment. जब saving, जब savings में कमी वाक़ई होती है तो the curve will shift from S1 to S2. saving में जब कमी वाक़ई होती है तो naturally क्या होता है, रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट में इजाफा होता है. रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट जब बढ़ जाएगा तो वही इक्विलिब्रियम जो है इस मार्केट में वही है एट पॉइंट बी, जब रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट में इजाफा होगा तो इनकम में कमी वाक़ होगी एंड कॉरस्पॉन्डिंग वो ये पॉइंट बी है. सो इफ वी कंबाइन दीज पॉइंट्स ए एंड बी वी गेट द आई एस कर्व. सो वी कैन यूज this loanable funds model also to drive the IS curve in the economy, which brings equilibrium in the goods market. How we can use fiscal policy and shift the IS curve, because the major difference between classical economist and Keynesian economist, classical ये कहते हैं government can stabilize the economy if there are fluctuations by using monetary policy, but Keynesian says that that the government or the policy makers can also use fiscal policy to stabilize the economy, to get rid of the economic fluctuations. So for this purpose we will be using IS and LM model to see how fiscal policy variable, which is the government expenditure and taxes, can affect aggregate demand and output in the economy. So since we are going to discuss LM curve in the next class, तो आज क्योंकि हम सिर्फ IS curve को ड्राई करेंगे और see how IS curve is affected by fiscal policy, and then when we'll discuss LM curve we'll try to bring these together and try to see how changes in fiscal policy, changes in government expenditure, changes in taxes affect the level of income and output in the economy. Now suppose at any given value of R, if there is increase in G, there are two diagrams here, A and B. In A we are measuring income on y-axis, income on x-axis, expenditure on y-axis. In diagram B we are measuring rate of interest on y-axis, income on y-axis, x-axis. Now suppose we have the income line, we have the expenditure line, economy is equilibrium at y1. Suppose G will go up from G1 to G2. What will happen to the expenditure curve? जब गवर्नमेंट परचेजेस में इजाफा होगा, गवर्नमेंट स्पेंडिंग में इजाफा होगा, तो प्लान एक्सपेंडिचर को क्या होगा? Naturally, government expenditure is the component of planned expenditure. Planned expenditure is equal to C plus I plus G. तो जब गवर्नमेंट एक्सपेंडिचर में इजाफा होगा, गवर्नमेंट स्पेंडिंग में इजाफा होगा, तो E में इजाफा हो जाएगा. The curve will shift rightward. Now we see this change, how this change in expenditure affect the IS curve. Corresponding to the equilibrium of the economy at Y1, we have IS1 curve. Now suppose due to change in government spending, expenditure में इजाफा हो गया, तो this will shift the IS curve to the right, because with the change in government planned expenditure, output must rise, right? Output will shift, so the IS curve will shift rightward from IS1 to IS2 at corresponding to the new equilibrium level of income, which is Y2, right? So delta Y is equal to 1 over 1 minus MPC is equal to delta G, which is the multiplier. Our income will change more than the change in government spending. So I can re-summarize this what we have learned in this diagram. Basically हम देखना ये चाह रहे हैं कि how fiscal policy variables, which is G and taxes, can affect or can shift the IS curve. तो हमने ये देखा कि अगर rate of interest given हो और गवर्नमेंट स्पेंडिंग में इजाफा हो जाता है, तो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग, गवर्नमेंट स्पेंडिंग में इजाफा होने से ई में इजाफा हो जाएगा, प्लान एक्सपेंडिचर बढ़ जाते हैं, जब प्लान एक्सपेंडिचर बनते हैं तो इनकम में इजाफा हो जाता है. सो द IS कर्व विल शिफ्ट राइटवर्ड. द हॉरिजॉन्टल डिस्टेंस ऑफ द IS कर्व शिफ्ट इक्वल डेल्टा y इज इक्वल टू 1 over 1 minus MPC into delta y. Now the exercise which I am giving to you is that I have used the fiscal policy variable which is shifting IS curve. You are going to use Keynesian cross or loanable funds market to show how an increase in taxes shift the IS curve. क्योंकि fiscal policy के दो component हैं, एक G और एक T. तो I have used G, मैंने अभी G को change किया और I have seen the shift in IS curve, how G is affecting IS curve. Now what you are going to do, आप अपने घर पे आपने जो एक्सरसाइज करनी है, जो डायग्राम बनाना है और उसको पे लिखना भी है, आपने क्या करना है कि आपने the other variable which is taxes, t को चेंज करना है and see how this will shift the IS curve. अगर टैक्सेस में कमी होती है, टैक्सेस में इजाफा होता है, तो IS curve किस तरफ शिफ्ट होगा. This is exercise for you. Now students, what we have learned today, I will just summarize in a few minutes and then we'll end up with this lecture today. We started to learn about Keynesian cross because we want Keynesian is a group of economists who criticized classical economic theory, who says that in the long run prices are flexible, economy is at equilibrium, and if there is destabilization, if there is economic fluctuation in the short run, federal government or the Fed or the central bank can use monetary policy to bring equilibrium in the economy. But Keynesians say that government can also use fiscal policy instead of monetary policy to stabilize the economy. So they have given their own model, which is known as the Keynesian cross, and that was basic model of income determination, takes fiscal policy and investment as exogenous variable. Fiscal policy has multiplied impact on income. हमने ये देखा कि whenever there is a change in income, whenever there is change in government spending, whenever there is change in government purchases, it has an effect on income level in the economy and it has a multiplier effect. अगर इनकम में गवर्नमेंट परचेज में $1 का इजाफा होता है तो जो इनकम है उसमें 5 गुना इजाफा हो जाता है, राइट. सो दैट इज नोन एज द टैक्स मल्टीप्लायर. और हमने गवर्नमेंट परचेज मल्टीप्लायर, हमने दूसरी साइड पे दूसरा पॉलिसी वेरिएबल है, फिस्कल पॉलिसी वेरिएबल विच इज टैक्सेस. तो जब हम टैक्सेस में इजाफा किया, कंजम्पशन में कमी वाक़ई हुई, इनकम में कमी वाक़ई हुई. सो वी हैव आल्सो सीन दैट द टैक्स मल्टीप्लायर, व्हेनेवर देयर इज अ चेंज इन टैक्सेस in the economy, that affects the consumption, consumer spending, which in turn affect the income level in the country. So taxes के में इजाफा से spending में कमी वाक़ई होती है, income consumption में इजाफा हो जाता है, और गवर्नमेंट टैक्सेस में कमी वाक़ई होने से if there is increase in taxes, consumption में कमी वाक़ई होगी और income level में कमी वाक़ई हो जाती है. So there is inverse relationship between taxes and income. और उसके बाद हमने ये भी देखा the change in income due to change in government spending is more than due to change in taxes. So the government spending multiplier or government purchase multiplier is much larger, is much bigger than the tax multiplier. This is what we have seen. उसके बाद हमने we have used this Keynesian cross and tried to drive the IS curve, investment saving curve. What is IS curve? IS curve is the combination of rate of interest, income level that results or that brings equilibrium in the goods market. So with the help of Keynesian cross we have driven the IS curve. और उसके बाद हमने देखा कि how IS curve can be shifted by using monetary and fiscal policy. If we use government spending to shift the IS curve, IS curve can be shifted rightward or leftward. It depends. अगर गवर्नमेंट स्पेंडिंग में इजाफा होता है तो क्या होगा, प्लान्ड एक्सपेंडिचर में भी इजाफा हो जाता है. जब प्लान्ड एक्सपेंडिचर में इजाफा होता है तो व्हाट विल हैपन, द कर्व विल शिफ्ट अपवर्ड and the IS curve will shift rightward and the economy comes to an equilibrium interest rate, which interest rate is lower, income is at higher level, right. So we can see that the change in government spending or government purchases can also shift the IS curve. The exercise which I gave to you is that two exercises मैंने आज आपको दी हैं. पहली exercise मैंने दी कि I have told you, I have taught you that कि अगर जो planned expenditure के 3 component है, consumption, investment, government purchases, तो मैंने आपको सिखाया है कि अगर government purchases में change आती है तो how this will bring a change in income. And then I also teach you that if there is change in taxes, which is change in consumption, how that affect the income level in the economy. I gave you the exercise that the third component of planned expenditure is I. So whenever there is a change in investment spending, how this will affect the income level in the country. So you have to draw a diagram by using Keynesian cross and see how the change in investment demand affect the level of income in the economy. दूसरी जो मैंने एक्सरसाइज आपको दी है घर पे करने के लिए, that relates to and that how fiscal policy variables can affect the shift the IS curve. तो I have taught you, जो मैंने सिखाया आपको कि if there is a change in G upward and downward, this will shift IS curve. The second component of fiscal policy, or the second variable, is taxes. So whenever there is a change in taxes, there will be a shift in IS curve. So that's you are going to drive, or that you are going to exercise. आपने घर पे बनाना है और बनाने के बाद लिखना है कि how the change in taxes shift the IS curve leftward and rightward. तो आज का लेक्चर स्टूडेंट्स यहाँ पे ख़त्म करते हैं. I hope you have understood what we have learned today. Till next time, Allah Hafiz. See you. God bless us all.